because it's May and it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and one of the biggest topics that everybody's always like curious about is depression. Could you talk more about depression? Like, what is it? How do you deal with it? What do you recommend people do if they are feeling they are depressed?
I think it is an important topic to speak about because 1 out of 4 people is struggling with some sort of clinical issue, and depression is actually the second leading illness.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't believe that.
I think one of the things that we want to be really sure of is that sometimes we use that term quite flippantly. Oh man, I didn't get that project, or I didn't get that deal and I'm just feeling so depressed. That's not depression. That's just a bad day. Or that's you feeling disappointed, or that's you feeling sad. Sadness is a normal human emotion. Oftentimes when we have 2, 3, 4 bad days, we feel like something's wrong with us because everybody just looks so happy all the time. That's something we see on social media all the time, and life and people's emotions and everything just looks so positive all around us, and so we feel like, well, maybe there's something wrong with me if I've had a few bad days. That's not depression. Clinical depression is a serious clinical issue, and it can have implications in all parts of your life, including your physical health. There are a set of symptoms that you want to look for, such as changes in your mood. Maybe you become more irritable, because not everybody sits and cries. You see people sobbing and crying, but that's not what depression looks like in many people. It could just be a lot of irritation, a lot of anger, a lot of agitation. When people say I have a short circuit, like that kind of thing is happening more often than not every day for at least 2 weeks. Changes in your concentration, so you're making a lot more mistakes at work, or you're just like not as engaged. Changes in your sleep, so either you're gonna sleep too much, which is called hypersomnia, or hyposomnia, which is that you're not sleeping enough. Changes in your appetite. Some people eat too much when they're depressed, and some people eat not at all. So you could gain weight or you could lose weight. And all of this is happening quite rapidly. And one of the hallmarks of depression, hallmark symptoms of depression, is that the things that used to give you joy no longer give you joy. So I'm at home and I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me call up my friends and I just need to just change my mood a little bit. And when I go out, it's like, oh, this isn't it. And I just want to go back home. I used to love to travel and now I just want to be back home. But I don't want to be home either. So it's this constant tension inside of you and constant struggle where you're saying, I'm not happy where I'm at, and I want to be somewhere else, and that can feel quite burdensome. It can result in a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And if this is going on for more often than not, most days than not, over a course of 2 weeks, you can imagine that feelings of guilt will show up. That, man, I'm such a downer. Everywhere I go, it's just negative energy, and I don't want to be like this for my kids or my husband or my wife or my colleagues. And that shame and guilt can then start to feel hopeless, ever feel differently. And that's something really scary that happens during depression, where your aperture really narrows and you start to focus only on the negative. You actually lose perspective. It's not like, oh, I'm just being a downer or I'm just being negative. My brain's capacity to hold the whole picture in mind is compromised. And that can make people feel very dark. And then thoughts of suicide or self-harm really start to show up for people, that I don't want to live anymore. But this can happen over a course of 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's not over a course of a lifetime, and it's not necessarily because some trauma has happened to you. And so, it can happen quite rapidly for people if they've been compromised for quite some time.
Wow, I was listening to you speak, and I was relating to so many times of when I felt depressed, and I really related to when you said you want to go somewhere, and then when you go somewhere, you're like, I just want to be home, and it's just you can't find being content. You're just always unhappy, and it's such a horrible feeling. And I'm like, thank God it's been a while since I felt that way. But what do you recommend people do if they're starting to feel this way, they're catching themselves? What is the best first step if it's still relatively new, it's only been a couple weeks, a month or 2 months? But what do you do if you're in deep depression, it's been years, and you're you need a lot of help?
So the first thing that I would recommend is that if you are wondering, should I talk to someone? Talk to someone. That's coming from your deep psyche, and it's saying, go talk to somebody. And if any of this resonates with you and you're saying, well, that kind of sounds like me, but I'm not that bad yet, Don't wait till you're that bad yet. And if you are feeling that you are not tending to your mental health or emotional hygiene and you need support in that space, go talk to someone. I think we need to depathologize seeking support or going to a therapist. I see a therapist and I tell everyone who will listen that I have a therapist and I see this person twice a week. These are issues that I'm addressing and I actively go in and try to address these issues. I don't wait till something goes wrong before I address it. And so if you are starting to feel a little bit emotionally like wobbly, is what I would say. Get support, learn the coping skills, draw the patterns, figure out what it is that's making you feel wobbly, and gain your strength back again when it comes to mental health. Like, you don't want to hit rock bottom, because coming up from rock bottom, it's a whole lot more work and you have a lot less energy at that point. You've really sort of compromised so many things along the way, because it's not just that, oh, I'm depressed and like everything else is going the way it is. Your relationships, the way you engage with your children, the way you engage with your work, the way you engage with the environment, the way you engage with everything is compromised along the way. So you don't want to hit that place, because it's just harder on everything, including your physical health. And it's harder to just come back from that place. But you can come back from it. And if you are in that place where you are severe depression, I would say seek support from a mental health professional. You cannot do this alone. This is not a self-help project. This is a clinical diagnosis that you need clinical support for. So I would say start today, pick up the phone, do something about that, because there is treatment and you actually don't have to live like that. It is one of the most easily treated disorders. So I would really encourage people to get support.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing you say all this, I mean, I feel like I'm relatively, like, I've got my life together to some extent, not fully, but but I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to start seeing a therapist again. I used to, and I remember when I did, I really felt like so much better about everything, and I've really stopped. But you're right, it's like emotional hygiene, and I love that term, emotional hygiene. That's so cool, I love it. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.